Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Silver Years. My name is DK, and I'm very happy to be here, and I humbly thank you for joining me. Today, I'd like to talk about the weather. Yes, I know that talking about the weather is typically something people talk about when they don't know what else to talk about, because we all have the weather in common, right? It's safe territory and common ground we can all relate to. And for the most part, the weather is the weather. It just is. And what could be polarizing about that? Or is there more to the weather than meets the eye? Where I live in Southern California right now, at the beginning of August, it is hot and very humid. Yes, it is summer, and being hot this time of year is to be expected. Having close to 85% humidity or more while encased in a heat dome is not. Having Category 5 hurricanes in the Pacific Ocean swirling off the coasts of Mexico, Baja California, and Southern California isn't normal, in my experience, either. Having lived here for many decades, it's never been heard of. With this has come the king tides, the rip tides, the monster waves, and the flooding along the coastline as authorities try to keep people who want to keep cool away from the beach through constant fear mongering that, from my observation, isn't working very well. Some would be quick to chalk all this up to climate change and global warming. Is that not the rhetoric we've been hearing for years, along with trust the science, climate change, and global warming? And of course, we've been reminded for decades that it's all our fault. Oh, and the fault of cow farts. Let's not forget the methane from cow farts. Add to that our use of fossil fuels and whatever else the controlled science has accused us of doing, and well, the planet is apparently heating up, and it's all our fault. To reinforce this narrative, for example, anyone can see that there are no more glaciers in Glacier National Park in Montana. Everything is melted. Glaciers all over the world have disappeared and are disappearing. Again, melted. And we're told it's all our fault. Yet, for some reason, water shortages still persist everywhere. And why is that? Where has all of that melted glacial water really gone? Because the ocean isn't rising enough to support what's melted. This is just me, but I can only wonder if a lot of it has been secretly siphoned for data center operation and water table contamination. But that's just me looking beyond what the talking heads are telling me because I prefer to question what I'm being told, especially when it doesn't make any sense. And I don't buy the climate change and global warming narrative for 1 second. No matter how many private jets their mouthpiece, Greta Thunberg, is positioned to scream it from, there are too many scientists who have broken from the control structure, as well as others in the know who have debunked the controlled narratives as false, with the evidence to back it up. And from what I can see, the climate blame game has been basically made up and is being used to divert our attention away from the real issue, the real cause. But that doesn't mean that things around us aren't heating up. And for those of us in the northern hemisphere this summer, the heat is breaking all records. They even gave it a name. A heat dome is what it's being called. And it seems that there's always an agenda when they give the occurrence a name, catchy little name. So, what is causing this record breaking heat dome and the fires and hurricanes and tornadoes and flash flooding that follow as a result? If our breathing, use of fossil fuels, and cow farts are not what's causing the planet and our atmosphere to heat up, then what is? My first response would be chemtrails, look up, and HARP, weather manipulation technology. Those running the power structures of this planet tell us what they're doing. And it's up to us to see what's happening and then connect the dots. So let's try to connect a few dots here. Let's start with HARP, HAARP. It's an acronym that stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, HARP. So the name alone tells us that it's a frequency manipulator. It's a frequency research program. And what do I always say? Everything is frequency. Your thoughts are frequencies. Frequencies create our reality. Frequencies create the weather. Frequencies create everything. And according to the internet, HARP is a scientific research initiative based in Gakona, Alaska, using frequencies to manipulate the atmosphere. And some may wonder how something in Alaska can be used to influence the weather in Southern California or anywhere else in the world for that matter. My answer to that would be just because we're told the technology connected to the research program is based in Alaska doesn't mean that technology is confined or limited to that location. That technology could be on a cargo ship or military vessel out in the middle of the ocean just as easily as it could be attached to a plane or a drone used to dump chemtrails in a targeted area. But don't take my word for it for any of this. Please always do your own research and decide for yourself. Back in the 1980s, when I was living in Colorado, the local news stations made a big deal about how Vail Mountain Ski Resort was going to manufacture its own snow through weather manipulation. They announced it out loud for all who had the ears to hear. Weather manipulation was a thing 50 years ago, and they were using it on the ski mountain to extend the ski season, making it all out to be fun and games. What's the old saying? Bread and circuses, right? Now think on that for a minute and consider how many uses weather manipulation technology has, and think about the godlike power any organization, government, or military unit would have if it were able to control the weather anywhere, anytime. We live in a highly polarized reality, something I've said many times before. What can be used to help us can also be weaponized against us. Something like weather manipulation can create weather that benefits us, like a gentle rain or a balmy day, or it can be used as a weapon against people and countries through adverse and deadly conditions like drought, rogue storms, or heavy flooding. Can you say heat dome and then ask what frequencies put it there? It all depends on who controls the technology and what their agenda is, now doesn't it? There are a number of known factors that create hurricanes. We call them hurricanes in this country, but they can also be called typhoons, monsoons, cyclones, depending on where you are in the world. And when one is forming, our National Weather Service is quick to show us worst case scenarios while projecting the size of the storm and its travel path over the ocean and into the coastlines. And if we pay enough attention to the visual NOAA reporting, we can also see the atmospheric influence through rippled chemtrail clouds as powerful frequency waves are being used to alter the size and trajectory of the storm. Frequency waves that are artificially created to manipulate the storm and not natural to the storm's organic construct. This is where the chemtrails come into play. From my understanding, chemtrails have a multitude of agendas. But today I'm going to limit my chemtrail discussion to how they can be used in weather manipulation. But rest assured, chemtrails have numerous purposes. Now, in the chemicals that are sprayed over our heads and in our skies incessantly in every part of the world, without exception, are heavy metals, and nanotechnology, minuscule in size, as well as other harmful chemicals, parasites, bacteria, viruses, and the like. What is sprayed often creates rippled lines of chemtrail clouding as atmospheric frequencies are sent in to spread it around. Chemtrail clouds are artificial clouds and have a habit of making the sky look dirty. You know, the control structure of this planet has been trying to normalize chemtrail clouds so that the younger generations will always interpret them as being what real clouds look like. So much so that even Disney has been having all of its older movies redone so that the clouds shown on film match the chemtrail clouds that we see today. Chemtrail clouds that are fake and unnatural. Clouds that are nothing but a pool of metals and chemicals gathered together like a heavy metallic mist in the sky, being pushed around by atmospheric frequency manipulation. So, if you have every sky and the atmosphere around the planet heavily inundated with metals and nanotech, those metals and that tech can be manipulated to do a lot of unsavory things when the frequencies projected onto them is weaponized with a malevolent agenda of the one controlling the technology. This is called weather warfare. And yes, it is a thing, a very real thing we all live with every day. And it's been running our weather for as long as most of us have been alive, believe it or not. Remember back in the 70s and 80s when smog was a thing and we were to blame? The talking heads told us smog was a combination of smoke pollution and fog, our car exhaust being the biggest culprit. Truth was, smog was predominantly chemtrail caused, but we didn't have a clue. Back then, did we? No. Did you know that when the false 9/11 flag event occurred on the Twin Towers, Building 7, the Pentagon, and a field in Pennsylvania, that there was a massive hurricane hovering just off the coast of New York that very few were reporting on? And did you know that as soon as the series of crashes occurred and the nation had been officially traumatized, that hurricane just disappeared? Poof, literally gone, just like that. It seems to me that hurricane was someone's backup plan, and when it wasn't deemed necessary, it just vanished. This is what weather warfare looks like to me. Now, look at how hurricanes and storms of this nature are beginning to exceed Category 5 limits in size and destruction. They're getting bigger and badder with each new occurrence. And I include tornadoes in this as well, and we won't even go into earthquakes and tsunamis. Look at where they're directed and the after effects. Look at where these hurricanes and storms are directed and the after effects. Have you been adversely impacted by weather warfare in your area? Weather warfare that's always blamed on climate change and global warming. The labeling tactic that's used is called mind control programming through the use of repetition. MK Ultra Mind Control is a CIA program. It is real. In fact, they're having more hearings on it right now. Look it up for yourself. Repetitively using labels such as global warming, climate change, heat dome, even smog indoctrinates the mind to an agenda. If catchphrases are said enough and reinforced, we'll believe it and accept it until we begin to connect the dots. From what I can see, the planet is not getting warmer at all. It's the weather technology that's being used to heat things up. And we've been conveniently convinced that it's all our fault and to trust in the controlled science. Our science is controlled by the same groups that are controlling our weather. If our weather has been weaponized, wouldn't it stand to reason that the science has been too? Now, this isn't to say we have no part or power in all of this, because we do, even if we're taught that we don't. It is our collective reality, and we each contribute to it by creating our own perceptions, thoughts, beliefs, and frequencies. What we create is our responsibility. The frequencies we emit, our responsibility. Our greatest fault in this may lie in our blindness to the agenda and our apathetic non action. Consider the daily weather report many of us live by. For years, I've heard people around me complain about how you couldn't trust the weather person because they were wrong so much of the time. Even though you couldn't trust the weather report, you still depended on it. I realized one day that the weather projections were merely suggestions. They were projections based upon what the bigger control structure wanted to have happen. If you accepted what was reported, then that's the weather you would experience because you helped create it. Now take that a step further and consider yourself, consider your body, advanced technology, as I mentioned in my previous video titled The Great Divide in Realities. I'll put a link up here if you're interested. Your body is an advanced frequency emitter in its own right. And if some power hungry maniac can weaponize the weather through frequency manipulation, would we not have the power to counteract that using our minds and bodies as the advanced technology that it is? And I'm talking collectively here. One person matters, yes, but gather a group together with focus and watch what happens. I've participated in groups changing the size and course of hurricanes more than a few times. It works. It reminds me of the rain dance that the Native American tribes participate in when the ground is in need of rainfall. It works through the use of directed frequency, tones, and collective focus. My point is that we can override some of what's being projected if we come together. The emotional chaos within our collective society can also exacerbate or amplify weather events as well. In other words, as a collective, we can cause some crazy, erratic weather things to happen when we're traumatized or unbalanced, something the power structure strives for when instigating false flag events. It works both ways. Everything's polarized. And ultimately though, we hold the power. It's up to us to create balance within for the highest and best of all. Now, let me say, just as a reminder, that like most of the things I discuss on my channel, this topic is extremely multi layered and multifaceted, which means that it's not just one thing that makes it all so. It's many layers of things over time that has gotten us to where we are today. What I'm trying to shed light on here are simply some of the significant factors that I've observed when it comes to the climate and weather lies we've been led to believe in the name of climate change and global warming. All said, in the end, I feel it's our responsibility to get educated, to learn as much as we can about how we can improve our interconnection to the advanced technology we hold within our bodies, our very own bodies. The more of us that come together in this, the more effective we can be in overriding what's being weaponized against us. It's all in the frequency of things. So before I go, I'd like to leave you with a question to ponder, as I like to do. Have you ever moved the clouds or changed the weather? And do you believe it's possible? Please leave your comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. So until next time, be well, choose love, and thank you. Thank you for listening. Goodbye for now.